All right, we have lesson 6.5, find the percent of a number. Okay, so we're going to learn how to solve problems with percents today. I'm going to show you a few different ways to solve these problems and different types of these percent problems. Let's start with our solve and discuss it. So Lauren bought a jacket that was on sale for 60% off. She paid $40 of the original price of $75. How much did Lauren pay for the jacket? So I know that there's several ways to do this, but I want to give you guys the opportunity to try to work out your own way. Okay, so here's a couple things that we can look at. So we know that the full price of the jacket would be 100%, but she has 60% of it is off. So she's only paying this 40% here. Okay, so there's a couple ways I could figure out what is 40% of 75. So, and you can do that multiple ways. Like when we were estimating yesterday, we had 10%, and we could figure out what 10% of 75 was, and that's 7.5. And if I'm looking for 4 of them, so that would be times 4, so which would mean that she would pay $30 for the jacket. So that's one way we can do it. Some of you guys might take multiply here, so that would be 40% as a decimal. Remember, we have to change our percents to decimal, and multiply that by 75, which again, you would have gotten that $30 is how much Lauren paid for the jacket. And we're going to be looking at different ways. I'm going to show you different ways to set up our percent problems as we work through these. Okay? All right, and if you did a different way, you can tell me about it. All right, so it says, when finding a percent of a number, how can you tell whether your answer is reasonable? Will the answer be greater than or less than the original amount? So we need to remember, guys, that percents equal a part of a whole. Now, percents, okay, are out of 100. So 100% is our whole. So if I'm looking for something that's less than 100%, it should be less than the original amount. Okay, so we have example 1 here. We're going to estimate and find the percent of our answers here. So I have 2 different ways that I'm going to show you how to do this. The first way I want to show you how to do this is called using our percent equation. Okay, so for some of these problems, you might prefer the percent equation, and for other problems, you're going to maybe prefer something else that we'll do here in just a moment. But my percent equation means that I'm taking my percent times a whole, and that should give me the part. So percent times whole gives me my part. Now, one thing that you do need to know as a little clue in here is that we must change our percents to decimals. Okay, so we do not put in the number that is for our decimal or for our percent. It has to be written as a decimal. So if I look here and we want to know how many 6th graders are going on this field trip, and we have 575 students. So based off of our pie chart here, I have 6th graders, there's 36. So 36 of 575 students. Okay, so whenever we see this word of, guys, that means to multiply. And this is taking us to our percent equation. So I'm going to change this to 0.36 because I want to change my percent to a decimal, so D to P. And then of is multiplying right here, like in our percent equation, of a whole. Since this is all of the students, that's a whole. So 575, and that is going to give me my part and my answer here for my problem. So multiply, and you should get 207 students. Okay, so that is using the percent equation. Now, the next thing that I'm going to show you is called the percent proportion. So this is the percent proportion. So it's is over of is equal to percent over 100. Now, the is represents the part and the of represents the whole. And there's sometimes we get these sentences that have the words is and of in them, and that's why the percent proportion is kind of neat in how it works that way. So we have our problem here. We know that we have 36%. Notice that I do not have to write this as a decimal, but I have 36% over 100. Okay, and that's equal to my part, which I don't know, over the whole, which is at 575 students. Okay, and so now we're going to solve for proportion. So you're going to be solving a lot of proportions in 7th grade. So this is just getting started on that. So to solve proportions, you want to multiply diagonally. So I'm going to multiply here 575 times 36, which is going to be 20700. All right, and then I multiply here. X times 100 is 100x. All right, and then my last step is to solve my equation. Remember, to solve equations, we want to, whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So I'm going to divide both sides by 100 because I want x by itself. Remember those rules. So, and I'm going to get 207. Now, I got exactly the same answer. Some of you might say, this took longer than the other way. For some occasions, you would like the proportion. For some occasions, you might like the equation. I do not care which one that you use, but you need to know that whatever one you choose, you need to know it well. So you need to know where to put things at all times. Now, this is finding a part. When you find a part, yeah, the equation makes a lot of sense, but every percent problem is not always going to be finding a part. So you'll have to be careful with that. Okay, here's your try it and convince me. Go ahead and work through these. All right, so I set both of these up. I didn't show much more of my work, but I set both of them up to if I wanted to use the equation or the proportion here, and I got 391 boys. Now, the convince me said in finding a percent of a number, when might you want to use a fraction form of the percent instead of the decimal? So those would be things like our benchmark fractions. So those would be like our 1/2, maybe 3/4, 1/4, those benchmark fractions that we would want to use and for mental math. All right, so here again, we're going to still find a part. So if you prefer the equation, by all means, you can use the equation, but I'm also going to show you how to set it up for your proportion as well. So we are going to find 72.5% of 60. So I have 72.5%. If I'm using the equation, then I need to make sure that my percent is written as a decimal. So D2P, so 0.725 times the whole, which is 60. So to get my final answer here. So multiply that together and I'm going to get 43.5. And since we're talking about square footage, then I need to make sure I do not leave a naked number and I have a label on it. Now, if you are setting it up with your proportion, I would have my unknown be my part, 60 is the whole, and then I would have my 72.5% over 100. And because I'm using this proportion, I leave my percent just the same. It does have a decimal over a fraction, and we usually say that's a big no-no, but for our proportion, it does not matter. You can still just do this straight away how we've done it before, and you're going to get your answer here. Remember, multiply and then divide. Okay, so here's another example for you. Try it. Go ahead and try this one on your own. All right, nice work. Here we are with 0.28, so a very small percentage of 35. All right, so now we're going to move on to finding a percent. The first two examples, we were finding a part, so now we are finding the percent. Okay, so and I brought back a reminder here of my proportion because this is maybe when we might want to use my proportion more than we would want to use the equation. So I want to know what percent, so I don't know my percent, of 92 is 11.5. So I'm going to start this one with my proportion so you guys can really see how this works. So this is where I'm saying those words is and of really come into play. So this is saying of 92. So that's saying this is a whole. And this is saying is 11.5. And this is my part. Okay, so if I set up my proportion here, I have 11.5 over 92 because this is my part over whole, is over of. I have 100 and I don't know the percent. That is my question mark. That's what I do not know. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and multiply my diagonal. So I multiply here. So I have 11.5 times 100, so which is going to be 1150. And then I have 92 times x. Okay, so now I want to solve for x. So I need to get x by itself, which means I divide by 92. So when I divide by 92, x is by itself, and I'm going to get 12.5%. So how it is, I just have to add the percent symbol after. So in my calculator, it read 12.5. I just need to make sure I put my percent after the 12.5. And there's my answer. Now, if you were thinking that you still like the equation more, remember the equation is going to be my percent times my whole is equal to my part. Okay, so my percent, we don't know. The whole is our of part, so that's 92, and my part is at 11.5. So you still have to solve your equation. So I'm going to have to divide by 92, divide by 92, so that I get my x on this side. Now when I type in 11.5 divided by 92 in my calculator, it's going to read 0.125. So this is not my percent. That's the decimal form of my percent. So I need to remember D2P so that I get 12.5%. So when you use the equation, you have to make sure that you're converting between decimals and percents. When you use the proportion, you do not have to worry about that step. All right, here's another try it, guys. Go ahead and work through this. Okay, here's my work again. I got 60% showing you with my proportion and with my equation, both the steps in the work. So if you made a mistake, make sure you pause the videos, guys, that you can always pause them, write down your work, look at the work carefully. All right, so last thing that we have, guys, is our do you understands. So please make sure that you work through and write down your answers for these. Right, and here's my answers. We can either use the equation or the proportion. And what does of mean? It means to multiply. All right, make sure that you've also rated your understanding here.